This week, a jury in a US court found that actress Amber Heard defamed Johnny Depp and acted with malice when she intentionally lied about being a victim of domestic violence. For the millions of people watching the proceedings live around the world, the verdict was no surprise. Media reports show that the hashtag Justice for Johnny Depp garnered 15 billion views throughout the trial, while on social media, the hashtag I Stand With Amber Heard clips drew a measly 8.2 million. Now, Amber Heard was able to successfully argue that comments by Depp's former lawyer impugned her reputation, but the damages payout split still means she will have to fork out millions and millions of dollars to her former husband. But despite the outcome, some in the media have actually shocked me with their take on this trial. All of the evidence we've seen and the clear repeated acts of deception shown by Heard has not stopped some journalists and commentators writing articles that this is bad for their movement. The hashtag #MeToo movement, the movement where all allegations of abuse must be believed without a trial. Well, they had a real trial and it was to the civil standard, which means it should have been easier for Heard to prove her story was true. But she failed, and this is why.
Her nose doesn't appear to be injured in any of these pictures, does it, Ms. Heard?
That's why I'm wearing makeup.
Right. And makeup covers up swelling, right?
Makeup will not cover up swelling. Ice will, though.
Ice will cover up swelling?
Ice reduces swelling. Normally, the swelling after that kind of injury is not as bad as you might imagine, and for me, it wasn't that bad. I have a picture of it underneath the makeup. That's how I know how to reference it.
A picture you haven't produced or shown to this jury, right, Ms. Heard?
I produced everything.
But you haven't shown it to this jury.
I would very much like to. It's not my job.
That was one of several dramatic moments of cross-examination showing a major disconnect between what Heard claims happens and photographic evidence. And the jury wasn't asked to find just whether her story was true. They were also asked whether Heard acted with malice and intended to harm Depp's reputation with her story. The jury found that Heard did act with malice in orchestrating this story of victimhood, and Heard's credibility was completely destroyed when Depp's lawyers pushed her to reveal that she had failed to honour a divorce settlement pledge of $7 million to a charity.
As of today, you have not paid $3.5 million of your own money to the ACLU. Yes or no?
I have not yet.
And as of today, you have not paid $3.5 million of your own money to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, correct?
I have not yet. Johnny sued me.
So as of today, you have not paid $7 million of your divorce settlement to charity, right?
I have not been able to fulfill those obligations yet.
Now, Heard had bragged publicly about giving the divorce settlement to charity, and she never followed through with the commitment. And here she is on TV doing just that.
And actually were all kinds of accusations flying your way when you said all this, and then there was a divorce settlement, you got $7 million. People were saying this is all about the money, but then you did something that twisted that whole argument. What did you do with that money?
$7 million in total was donated to, I split it between the ACLU and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
ACLU is a human rights organization.
Sorry, ACLU is a prominent organization, nonprofit organization in the United States. Yeah. It's called the American Civil Liberties Union, and they work on behalf of marginalized communities on the ground and in legislative reform.
Right.
And
well, more power to you, because that's something that I've never heard of.
I wanted nothing.
Incredible stuff. And this was all played for the jury in court. Heard even stopped Depp from making the payments to the charities directly, demanding that the money go to her first. This is a person with no credibility who used their words to destroy someone's life, and still some in the media refused to take a backward step. Writing for The Guardian, Moira Donegan described the trial as an orgy of misogyny. She writes, "The strange, illogical and unjust ruling has the effect of sanctioning Depp's alleged abuse of Heard and of punishing Heard for speaking about it." Sorry, Moira and The Guardian, but they went to court over Heard's specific allegations, and the court found that her words were carefully orchestrated lies. The UK defamation case Moira relies on to continue giving weight to Heard's lies is not comparable to the US trial, as Depp was suing the British paper, not Heard personally. The Guardian itself even reported that the judge in the UK trial did not hear as much evidence related to Heard's credibility. And we all know that Heard's credibility has been shattered based on new evidence shown in the US trial, including the fact that she never fulfilled her multi-million-dollar charity pledge. But Moira ignores all of this and continues to link this one case to all allegations of abuse. It will have a devastating effect on survivors who will be silenced now with the knowledge that they cannot speak about their violent experiences at men's hands without the threat of a ruinous libel suit. In that sense, women's speech just became a lot less free. And this idea of free speech that the left now seems to cherish was flagged by Heard herself, who, facing the prospect of bankruptcy, now claims that her freedom of speech has been taken from her. I'm sad I lost this case, but I am sadder still that I seem to have lost a right I had as an American to speak freely and openly. But The Guardian wasn't the only publication defending a person who is indefensible. And this is the problem with how many in the media covered this case. No one case should be representative of all cases. If you are a champion of women's rights, the Heard Depp case should not bother you. It is justice taking place. It doesn't set back women because not all women lie. It just shows that there are consequences for lying. Every allegation needs to be assessed on its merit. And if you find yourself wanting a particular court outcome because it helps your tribal narrative, then you are being disingenuous. Well, joining me now to cut through the media's spin is Director of Communications at the Institute of Public Affairs, Evan Mulholland, and CEO of Recastled, Kosha Garda. Kosha, why don't we start with you? Have you been following the trial over there in the US? It's hard to miss some of the clips, but what have you made of the way that the media has covered this event? Has it surprised you?
Hi, Jack. Good to be with you. It certainly has been hard to miss, so I have been watching it for better or for worse. And, you know, to me, I think that this story is really tailor-made to discuss the role of media and the way the media is covering it and their role in society, because the origin story of this entire case actually starts in the media. The whole thing started with Amber Heard writing an op-ed in 2018 in the Washington Post in collaboration with the ACLU, and the Washington Post rushed to print it, in which she alleged, she never named Johnny Depp, but it was understood by all that that's who she was referring to, and she made these claims of being the victim of abuse, including sexual abuse. And, you know, they rushed to print that with no due process. And then the facts came out into this court, and she basically did have some substantive claims. He is not a completely innocent party in this. However, she was wholly uncredible, including those examples that you showed there, as well as many others, and the jury did not find her credible. And so he comes out completely victorious in this. And then the media, I think, rushing to paint this, as you said, as some sort of indictment of the Me Too movement does not surprise me. I think that's the only way in which they would go. She herself has gone, including her attorney. But really, I think what this signifies, it's actually a good day for a correction of the Me Too movement, because it originally started as a force for good insofar as it was about giving women a fair hearing to have their case heard. She received that hearing. She got her day in court. She did not stand up to it. But then over time, it really quickly morphed into something that really took away men's rights and this concept of believe all women, which runs antithetical to the presumption of innocence, which is what all of our countries are based on. So I think it's serving as a correction for that. And those stats you mentioned on social media prove that Johnny Depp has really come out of this a winner in the court of public opinion, and people really are happy to have seen the record rectified for him.
Evan, your thoughts?
Well, it just proves there's no higher moral, purpose than the rule of law. And we saw this in Australia, in the Australian political scene over the last couple of years, media and journalists questioning whether the Believe All Women movement can interfere with the rule of law. Well, it can't. And I do think people can get into tribes with this and look at this through their own political prisms, and certainly the media do that. But at the end of the day, this is a very sad affair. It seems like it was a very toxic relationship that went both ways, and the daily highlights of this were kind of like a goggle box for court trials in this, which is what is really a very sad affair when there's a relationship breakdown. And I think the fact that these kind of court cases happen on a daily, weekly basis, but because it's two celebrities, it's exacerbated throughout the media for all to see. It's very sad.
Yeah, well said. And Kosha, I'd also be keen to hear your thoughts on this, because I think the danger that we have, me as a journalist reporting on these kind of stories, is if one case is successful, then we think it kind of sets this cultural precedent. So if a woman wins this case and she is to be believed, some in the media say, well, this is why we need to be so hard on #MeToo and we need to be able to air these allegations. But then, equally, on the other hand, we don't want to go so far as to say that this, infers that all women are being deceptive when they make these complaints. It's a very tricky situation.
It is. I think, each case has to be judged on its own merits, and we should all be careful to not try and engage in kind of grouping themes and using that as the way through which we define things as opposed to each case individually. But I do think that, the court system, while not infallible, it is the last vestige against the sort of agenda-driven trap that many people fall into, some more than others, because but for the court, we wouldn't have seen and understood Johnny Depp's side of the story. But for the courts, Kyle Rittenhouse probably would have been forever maligned as a white supremacist murderer. But for the courts in Chicago, Jussie Smollett, we would have thought was a victim of a hate crime, and he wasn't. So the courts still do play an important role. Thankfully, they really are that last vestige, and hopefully they remain so.
Yeah, well said. If we don't have the courts, then what do we have?